All right, thank you. I'm gonna call the Public Safety Committee meeting on Tuesday, January 17th, 2023 to order. Roll call, please.
Randy.
Here.
Tammy Roll.
Here.
Doug Brunner.
Here.
And we have two absent, Candace Montag and Kevin Engline.
Candace will be joining us, so we can just put what time she gets here on the record. Pledge allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, public comments. This is an opportunity for anyone to address the committee on any issue. Please observe the time limit of 3 minutes. While the committee encourages input from residents, it may not discuss or act on issues that are not duly noticed on the agenda. Do we have a couple?
We have no comments online. I do show Mike Axon online, but he's part of our agenda item.
Okay, would you like me to take their public comment now?
No, I think we can wait.
Wait till the agenda item?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Next item, approval of minutes from November 15th, 2022 PSC meeting.
I move to approve.
I have a motion from Randy and a second from Tammy. Any further discussion on the minutes from November 15th? Hearing no further discussion, with a motion and a second, all those in favor of signifying to approve the minutes, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say the same. Passes unanimously.
We have a comment. It says everything is very choppy. I'm unable to make much out of people speaking, so we'll just have to speak as loud as we can. I don't know, this has been an issue before too.
And I think Michael probably want to talk more on one issue, so.
Yeah,
I don't know, is that mic hooked up?
yeah, that's Mike.
Report of PSC officers, chairperson. First thing I'd like to do is just thank everyone for the sympathy and kind words regarding the loss of my mom. She loved Cross Plains, and she really appreciated Chief Tony's focus on community policing. She really enjoyed social media updates. She enjoyed the direction of the department. Other PSC officers, members, any comments or report outs?
I'm gonna just a brief, I'm gonna give a huge shout out to the fire department, to EMS, to our police department, to the Dane County Sheriff's Department. We had a very large fire in my neighborhood the week before Christmas, actually across the street. It was a bad thing that the house was lost, but everybody got out safe. But the fire department did an amazing job. EMS was amazing. There was a couple of our officers there. There was a couple of Dane County deputies there. My house kind of turned into a staging area for everybody. So I think at one point everybody was in my house. But it was just a tremendous process, a great job. Shout out to Mazo, Black Earth, and Middleton. I mean, it was quite an operation. It was
And very cold as well.
and very cool, right?
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate that. All right. Next agenda item, report of first responders, Cross Plains area EMS Chief Kelly.
Yes, so in 2022, we ran 519 calls for the year. Of those calls, we transported 340 patients. We have an update for personnel. We are going to be doing the chief interviews tomorrow evening, so hopefully some good news to come on that. All good things ahead. Otherwise, everything is good.
All right, very good. Thank you, Kelly. Cross Plains Fire Chief Justin.
We had, so for 2022, we had 136 calls, which I believe is our busiest year we've ever had for call volume. 72 of those were in the village, 34 in the town of Cross Plains, 14 in the town of Berry, and 16 times where we went and helped out our neighbors. We had, so the math came out, we have a response of roughly 10.5 firefighters per call response of all volunteer hours. what Ray alluded to before, we had a significant call in the village. And we had departments from Mazo, Middleton, Black Earth, EMS from Mazo, Crossline, of course. Police department, just thanks to everybody. Some of the video footage that the officers had on that day, both their body cam and their squad car cameras actually answered some questions that we had, part of the investigation process. Our investigation was all done in-house with help from the county themselves. But yeah, the report I actually just got finalized yesterday, I think it was. So a lot of information, a lot of reports, a lot of witnesses, of course. So a lot of hours went into that. Again, Public Works to be able to be there in a half hour to get salt out there. So yeah, the video footage we got from both neighbors and in the police department was priceless. We were able to do some training off of some of it too. So the investment in cameras was a huge bonus for us. Police department's investment in cameras was a huge bonus for us. So in December, we also added 2 new members. So we have a total roster of 36 members right now. On Friday, I have a meeting with the engineering firm that's going to represent us for the roof project on the shingled side of the building. So we're going to start getting that ball rolling, hopefully to have a new roof on it this summer or this fall. And then the last thing we had is Steve Buss is stepping down as assistant chief. He was our second assistant chief. He's still going to stay on the fire department. We moved Matt Burselli up to that position as assistant chief, and then we moved Brian Hill into Matt's vacant spot. So a little bit of change, but
And are you able to publicly share the cause of the fire at this time? or
at
not?
this time, no, I'll get it finalized and then we can, so we know the origin was in the garage. We thought we had it kind of narrowed down, and then when they kind of came back with the insurance investigators, there was some possibility other things. So once the insurance company finishes their up, we're gonna be able to. But
If
there
there's anything we can communicate for that.
yeah,
Sure.
so yeah, there was some equipment that was running in the garage, but it sounds like there have been some other mechanical issues with other things that were in there, so. Potentially, I mean, it'll probably still ultimately end up being undetermined.
Very good. Cross Plains Police Chief Tony.
I'm gonna defer since I have the 2022 annual report on this agenda. So it'll bring you guys up to speed. We're still having some mic issues. I'm trying to figure it out, but it's just not coming in very clear for Mike, but we can move on and see if it works. Maybe
Would, I could call Mike and put him on speaker.
that might actually work a little better.
Why don't you let him know to do that and this team?
Mike, I don't know if you heard that, but Doug is gonna call you and put you on speaker. Okay.
So, committee discussion, the first agenda item is discussion and possible action regarding the lights on the boardwalk, which I think is what Mike wants to
Yeah.
speak to, so let me just call him real quick. I'll put him on speaker. Hey, Mike, I got you on speaker. I know we're having some mic issues. Thought maybe I'd just leave you on speaker for this agenda item or for the rest of the meetings. That sound okay?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, so we are through the report of first responders. We're at committee discussion, and the first item is discussion and fact possible action regarding the lights on the boardwalk.
Okay, perfect.
So I can kind of start. So one of the village board members asked that this item be considered by the village board. This has been an item that has been talked about multiple meetings for multiple years. And so in doing some of the research, it sounds like it's always been an issue of funding, maybe even some issues of light pollution complaints, those kind of things. So once it hit the village board, they asked that we bring it to public safety. The reason that is because one of the village board members actually witnessed someone fall. And although they didn't want medical attention, they thought it was a pretty good fall and it looked like somebody got hurt. the concern is that, you know, especially the fall months and into winter months, by 4:30, 4:45, it's dark, and so that boardwalk is pretty much pitch black, so. They want us to consider it here as a public safety issue, and then if we agree, then we would move it up. The reason Mike is here is he and I and Jerry exchanged some emails regarding the past, the history, and cost. And so Mike has done, sounds like Mike's done a lot of work on this in years past. So he volunteered to be here, and we thank him for that.
And Mike, I'll let you talk in a minute, just to follow up. I can tell you as a village resident and a board member, I've had concerns and heard concerns from constituents as well, especially during COVID, that park is more and more popular. And I do think some additional lighting would be would make a safer boardwalk, safer situation. So Mike, you want to talk to us a little bit, give your input?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, thanks for having me, I guess, tonight. Basically the boardwalk project was quite, there's a lot of dynamics that go into that project in itself. Cost of the overall project to date is well $1 million. And, once, you know, future costs. Have come about, they didn't really come with any funding, so those were easily at the time, those were easy for the board to kind of say at the time, you know, we don't feel this is a need right now, and something that we should look to do in the future. What else has, you know, transpired throughout this is obviously there's the amphitheater project down in Sanders Park, and throughout that time the thought was that once the amphitheater was put into place, there'd obviously be electrical into the park itself. So, as you all may probably know, there currently is not electrical inside the park, which is another, you know, expense. Yes, you know, at the time we did looking for solar options. There are two solar lights that are sitting at the railroad crossing currently. Those were mandated to put in. Those ran us about $15,000 a piece. So if you look at, you know, trying to do that for, you know, roughly a mile or so, boardwalk, you look at the distance. So I mean, look for options to but it has not been brought as of recently to any committees or the system. I think that, you know, this is something that the community gets behind, and obviously public safety makes recommendations for. I think there's other committees that would want to take a look into, you know, alternatives or things we could do, but basically, obviously, the village board makes that final decision. So.
Very good, very good. So, Candace, Randy, Tammy, what are your opinions and discuss just a little bit?
Well, just so I get it, we're talking about the long boardwalk along the.
Yep, through Xander Park. Yep.
My first thing is that lights equal safety. And that is a dark place. I walk on it a lot, and I just think illumination equals safety. It's going to cut down on any criminal activity in there, and people can walk safely. So I'm a believer that illumination creates safety for people, and it's a safer environment.
And I don't think our committee needs to come up with the details. I think we want to give direction to the board. Candace, Tammy, you guys kind of on the same page?
Yes, I'm in full agreement with Randy.
I mean, I think we've had this argument before. I think when we were deciding on how we would proceed with items like this, and I think our committee was pretty strong-willed that we shouldn't have to worry about the funding source. But as Jay put it to us at one of our meetings, I remember he really wanted us to consider that. So it's being considered, but I mean, our committee is not going to be able to come up with $160,000, and so, and even a funding source for that. So I think a recommendation is the right way to go, and then we'll let them decide.
Motion.
Yeah, we would.
I do think,
Yeah,
I do
we
think
would.
we should have a motion, entertain a motion. I also think that some improvement in lighting is better than no improvement in lighting. So I don't think we have to spend the $1 million or whatever it is. I think if we add 4 at a time or something like that, if we're reasonable and have a plan, I think it can get better as we move. So I'd entertain a motion basically that summarizes that we're in favor of more.
I'll make a motion that the committee supports the idea of creating more lighting for the boardwalk for the safety of everybody that's using it.
That sounds good. So I have a motion from Randy and a second from Candace. Do I have any further discussion on lighting in the boardwalk? Mike, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't believe so.
Thanks, Mike.
Perfect. So
Yeah, thank you.
I have a motion on the table from Randy, a second by Candace, that the Public Safety Committee supports improving the lighting on the boardwalk. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say the same. Motion passes unanimously. Mike, I'll leave you on if you want, or I can hang you up.
Is there one other item on here?
There's curfew, ATV, UTV,
Oh,
road.
yeah.
You want to stay on for that? Okay,
Yeah.
you can stay on, so let's do discussion and possible action regarding the curfew ordinance first.
Okay, so, just so you guys understand, the curfew ordinance, I mean, all kinds of villages, cities, they have different curfew ordinances. Our stance at the police department with regarding to curfew has been, as long as I've been here, and I think even before my time, is if people are traveling from point A to point B, we just get them along, unless they're doing it every night or we're seeing a habitual teenagers, and usually they're up to something else. But normally, if for instance, for example, if an officer goes in at midnight to Quick Trip to buy a beverage, and he's in there and he sees 4 kids that are violating this curfew, he usually gets their names, sends them on their way, makes some phone calls to some parents, no tickets issued. That's usually, okay, they just snuck out to get something and they're headed back. We have, however, in the last, I'd say 18 months, we've been issuing more curfew violations. We've had 3 incidents. So the reason the curfew violations were entered is one group of kids broke into the grade school. And when they were caught in there, we issued curfew violations. We just had another group egg multiple vehicles in town. They went to Quick Trip, bought the eggs. They never reported it to us that these kids had bought eggs. They, you know, whatever they thought, but that's how we found out who they were. And then they egged cars all over, signs, including our signs, including our speed trailer. So we had a mess to deal with. So curfew violations were issued there. And then we just recently, during our last snowfall, we had a group of kids in 4 different vehicles whipping donuts over at a business that didn't want them on there because of liability issues. Again, the officer came upon them, issued some citations, kicked them all home. I had at least one father who was pretty upset over the curfew violations, thought that didn't need to happen. But my comment to him was, look, if they were just traveling through town or going from 1-8, okay, we usually give warnings unless it's something else. But all these incidents, it's something else. They're doing other things. And that's really the spirit of the curfew, is to say, look, there's nothing good happening at 12 at night. You should be home. You shouldn't be out. All those kids of that last case actually were supposed to be at someone's home. They snuck out, took vehicles, you know, and did what we all used to do too, right? But obviously those things are against ordinance, and so curfew violations were issued, and there was some upset people. I don't think that there needs to be any kind of change. There isn't any heavy-handed policing with curfew. It's not like my guys are looking for curfew violators. It's usually attached to something else. If they see kids walking around, they're usually, you know, sending them home, making some phone calls. There's no tickets issued. So I know that Doug wanted me to bring it up at this. That's where we're at with it. I just don't see the need to
It's a
change anything.
discretionary issue for the officers.
Yes.
To deal with during the investigation and take the action.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need a motion or anything. What the reason I asked for it to be put on the agenda is I've gotten 2 or 3 calls as a village board member from some parents, and I wanted a clear understanding of the ordinance, and I thought it would be good for our whole team to have that. When I read through the ordinance, it's very common sense to me. And if that's the way it's being enforced, which it is, I think that's very reasonable.
I agree. I mean, as a parent in the community of children, and also the business owner.
Yeah.
I have full support.
And, you know, one of the items I mentioned was the reason you have a ticket is because not that you were out, it's because you were doing
Doing something else.
Yeah.
Well, and all, you know, for instance, the burglary to the school, we could have hammered them with the burglary, you know? So, I mean, the good thing is they fix things that they damaged. They went inside, threw eggs in there, threw things all over, played basketball. I mean, they just, and they're caught on camera. These kids, the school's completely filled with cameras, but so it's, the curfew violation was kind of like, okay, this is what you're getting in lieu of real big trouble. And then we documented it. So it's not being used heavy-handed. I think that some parents have, you know, it's like all of us. I was very protective of my children too. And you don't want to think that your kids are wrapped up in that, but kids are kids and sometimes they do things that they shouldn't do. So I don't think there needs to be any movement on
And I
this.
think that's a great explanation, but I also want the committee members to know that you all are welcome to have something added to the agenda for clarification, for information, and stuff like that too. And that's really what I was wanting. And I think I can read the ordinance, but I also like the interpretation and getting Chief Tony's input. So appreciate that, Chief. Thank you. Item number 3, discussion and possible action regarding the ATV UTV ordinance. Go ahead, Chief.
Okay, so we received a letter asking for some changes. That was included in your packet, the letter. And besides the letter also was included the actual ordinance, the way as it sits. As far as violations and things like that, we don't have any. We just, I mean, every now and again, I'll get a complaint about an ATV did this, but it's usually 5, 6 a week later, or it's in passing. It's obviously not something that is ongoing. I think in the entire time since this ordinance has been in place, we've only issued 1 violation, and it's someone who traveled the length of Highway 14. And that was easy to resolve. So we haven't had any other issues, no careless operations, no operating while intoxication, nothing. I mean, we get some complaints from time to time, but they're very sporadic, that there's nothing consistent.
So the 2 items that Emily and Mike and Bob and Marilyn requested, who are in the audience. Number 1 is they requested the hours be updated from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. The reason for that is Black Earth, Mazo, and Township and Mazo have those hours. And we want to be consistent as they grow the ability to operate an ATV and an UTV. And the second specific request was just taking out paragraph 5, which is a section that refers from going to point A to point B, which is not considered necessary or enforceable. So the ATV ordinance would just have those 2 adjustments. And before I get committee interaction, I'll just ask Bob, Marilyn, Mike, Emily, do you have anything to add?
Not anything on top of what you said. I think that's, you know, I think we've shown as a club and as a group that, you know, we operate safely. There are people, you know, running all over town, just circling town. Most of the people are probably traveling from A to B, but it just seemed like it wasn't really enforceable. There's no way to really tell where you're going. So we thought it was important to clarify that.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Bob?
And the same thing as Mike was saying here too. Everything has been going good, Tony, as Tony has said here. I believe our record kind of stands for itself. 99% of the people here in town are older people and are enjoying these things here. Maybe they come down at Montague to have dinner. And the 7 to 9 thing here is we can't come down there and especially when they get busy and make it home by 8 o'clock. So it's that extra hour and also to take the rest of the townships that we're working on, other ones around us, and be able to get out there and make it back in town. So
Yeah.
appreciate it.
One more.
I'm at DNR CP and certified instructor. for ATVs, UTVs and snowmobiles. And I've been doing it for close to 25 years. So I really hammer this into anybody that takes our clubs, with our club and so forth, maintain the safety and don't cause a problem. So I appreciate you helping us with the weekend.
As far as the hours go, I don't think that that's such a big topic. The number 5, I do think that when all this was being discussed, the reason that was in place, if my memory serves me right, it was to prevent somebody going around and around in circles in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, and that would be enforceable because you'd be able to see it on a ring camera or whatever. I think that's the only one that I could see the village board pushing back on it, because that was a topic. I remember in some of my notes as I was preparing for this, that was the contention. So if you are going to be supporting that, I think it's very important that you come to the next village board meeting, because I will be sending them this recommendation if it passes here. But I do think that will be something that'll be brought up, you know, for question and discussion.
Very good, thank you, Chief. Tammy, Candace, what do you guys think?
I didn't get the information till today for some reason, so I haven't had a chance to review it. I guess my first thing is, with lack of a report about bad activity or challenges, whether I don't think changing the time represents any kind of an issue at all, with changing the time.
I don't,
We're trying to dig through and look at that section 5.
I guess I'm more, want clarification when you use the example of like riding around in neighborhoods.
Mhm.
I've
So,
seen, you know, the ATVs riding through neighborhoods, they're going exponentially slower than any other vehicle. You know, so I'm kind of,
so number 5, how it reads is village ATV, UTV routes are restricted to the following uses: gaining access to and from their residence to another local residence. So that, I think that's what Mike is saying. It's hard for us to, unless we followed them, if they went from A to B, that's almost impossible, right? Gaining access to a local business, so being able to drive from their homes to Montagues.
yeah,
And then gaining access to a recreation trail, so being able to go. So I think what's being proposed is that be eliminated completely and just have a free-for-all
thank you.
drive the ATV.
Yes, thank you for the
Because
I was like, I didn't understand.
that's what it is, correct? Am I?
Yeah.
So basically eliminating the A to B and just,
Yeah.
okay, people are using the ATVs.
I think the ATV club feels that paragraph 15, which reads, it shall be unlawful for any person to operate an ATV, UTV in such a manner as to cause or disturb the peace by excessive and unnecessary acceleration. The tires of such vehicle to spin or emit loud noises, to unnecessarily throw stones or gravel, or to cause the wheels to leave the ground. Though they think it's covered there, what we're trying to eliminate. And then I also think we got close to 3 years of that just not happening.
But plus that section is very hard to enforce or
Yeah.
document. So
Correct.
You'd almost have to, in order for it to be an enforceable thing, you'd have to get a complaint. And then you'd have to prove that, okay, they've gone around, and you have to pick up some type of video somewhere to see, okay, they just went around, you'd have to have some proof. So I think that's what Mike is trying to explain, is that it's kind of a hard ordinance to prove to go from A to B. And
Mike Axon, are you still on? Do you have a comment on those 2 items or the request?
Yeah, so I have no comments. I don't feel like those really affect Parks and Rec at all. I just would say that I think for the most part, we haven't received any issues or complaints within any of our parks or open space, and even when they were complaints, they were taken care of right away. So I think everything overall has worked out really well.
Appreciate it. And I also, just as being a village board member and a Parks and Rec member, or a Badger ATV club member, I remember all of the meetings we did have, and I was a little surprised there was only 2 cars here tonight. If you remember some of the contentious meetings we had, so I've been proud of the group in our village, how they've done things. We're trying to make some connections to help our businesses, so I think the 7 to 9 will be helpful and another step. And I think the important thing to remember is it's a privilege. Our ATV club and riders know that it can be taken away at any time. This ordinance can be changed at the village board level or eliminated. So
I
go
think-
ahead, Bob.
Doug also, our Global Club, our ATV club will also pay for the change of the time slot on the sign that are posted on the sign. Or ATV club will pay for that, but no cost to the village on changing any of this.
So, you know, I think the ask is reasonable. I do not know that the village board, I think, they have the same experience that we've had. I don't think it's near as big of a safety issue as what people thought 3 or 4 years ago, and now we have a proven record of showing that, so. I will actually make the motion, to update the ordinance as requested. Make the recommendation to the village board that we, support updating the ordinance as requested by this letter. In paragraph 4 in the hours of operation.
I'll second.
So I have a motion by Doug, a second by Randy. Do I have any further discussion from committee members? Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say the same. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay.
Next agenda item.
All right.
Agenda item 4, discussion and possible action regarding the Village of Cross Plains Emergency Operation Plan.
Okay, so I was hired here in 2020, and one of the first things that I saw was that our emergency operation plan for the village was very dated. And needed desperate upgrade and update. I did work with at that time, Bill Chang was administrator, and he also was the emergency management director at the time. So there was some initial advances made during that time, but it never came to fruition. We just slowly moved it. Thank you guys for.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
So it never really came to fruition. Well, in the hiring of Brian Mooney, that title was removed from his role and was granted to me as to be the emergency management director for the village. So then once it was on my plate, it needed for sure to be a topic that needed to be fixed. So what you have in front of you, if you guys have it, is the full operation plan for the village. It is about 42 pages long. Took me about 7 months to prepare. I involved all the entities within us, starting from the village administrator to the village board, fire, EMS, the police, and it basically outlines what we would do in a hazard. There are some documents left out, which we cannot share with the public because they're documents that provide our operation plan in certain events and how we would respond with certain things. And if it gets out to the public, well, that could be detrimental to the success of that. But basically, if you look through the document, it just updated all of our numbers, all of our information, who's in charge. I've even made some recent adjustments because Kelly's now in the interim position, and so we had to eliminate some people. If you go through the entire document, you get to a point where everything is checklist. So the first responder isn't going to have to guess what they have to do. It's already been outlined for them. They know what they have to do, and they can just simply check the box. Same thing with, for instance, the village president. If he shows up, when he shows up, he has certain responsibilities. All of those things have been outlined. He just simply goes through his checks, making the plan just to run a little better. Now, during chaos, anybody that's handled anything big, Darlington had floods all the time. Like your 2018 flood, that was a big deal here. We've used to flood all the time. And it would cut services in half because the bridge that went across would flood and then you'd have to split up services, and it was a lot to do, and people still wanted to cross there, and so a lot of those things, flooding is one issue, but there's a lot of hazard mitigation that goes into this document. It has been looked at. We had committee meetings, so we put together a committee of the department heads and some our EMS and fire, and we met and we discussed it, and it was brought and it was kind of run through them several times. I just asked for some time to actually just kind of delve into it and make some corrections. So this has been approved by them. The process is to get it to you all to look at. I don't know what happened, why you guys didn't get this stuff earlier, because normally and I put this in for you guys to have last Thursday. Normally it goes into a chain and it ends up so I don't know what happened, but this is once it gets approved here, then it goes to village board, and then village board takes a look at it and then officially adopts it as their emergency operation plan. Jay was part of all these discussions, so was Bill Mooney was part of these discussions. So
Is there any need to take action today, or can we review it?
it's up to you guys. I mean, we can table it till next month, or you can approve it. I don't see anything that is going to need to be changed. I mean, it's been vetted enough for like 8 months.
Reviewed by all the people that have to work within them.
And I mean,
Approved
Justin
of it,
was here.
Check the boxes.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with making a motion to approve it.
Justin, Kelly, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's the original document I got when I became fire chief. Actually, we started working on it a little bit before we became fire chief. It was full. I mean, those presidents from the 90s were in it, so maybe early 2000s. But yeah, it's been revamped, it's modernized. What Chief totally did, what we had as a document before, what we have now is a good document. Yeah, it's definitely night and day. I mean, yeah, the first hour of an emergency scene, you're never gonna look at, but hour 3, 4, 5, 6, that's the document you start looking at. If we would have had to use the document, if we would have had to reference a document like this during the flood, there wouldn't have been any useful information.
I'm good with the motion.
So I'm comfortable making a motion that we accept this plan as presented.
Well, motion and a second. Any further discussion by committee? I have a motion to approve the emergency operation plan as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying the same. Passes unanimous. Discussion and possible action regarding the Cross Plains Police Department 2022 annual report.
Okay, give me 1 second. All right, annual report. So as I told you guys last year, we're gonna definitely have these annually, and this year's no different. I was able to get the data a lot sooner than last year, so I think I'm gonna aim always for our January meeting, but just kind of ask for some leeway to February. I know that before my time here, you guys weren't getting these things, so I appreciate you guys giving me some leeway as I prepare the document, but I'm going to go through the whole document. So even though you didn't get it ahead of the meeting, it'll kind of explain itself. So 2022 first page is just the header. The second page kind of has some contact information, and our table of content has a message from the chief, basically telling you just kind of an overall view of where we're headed. What we've done so far, just a little message. Then it talks about our mission statement, which nothing has changed there. Our oath of honor is still the same. Code of ethics is there. You'll see some changes within the village officials. Obviously, we've had some change. Cody Bratton is new, and Cameron Bachorklin. Did I say that right?
Yep.
They're new to the board. You also will see a change in the police commission with Sean Williams being added to that committee. Public safety stayed the same. The organizational chart for the village during 2022 is what I presented. We've had 2 retirements, so that will obviously change for next year. Scott Kretz retired after 33 years of service, and Lisa Davis, our administrative assistant, retired after 28 years of service. So we have added 2 new positions. We've added 2 new staff members to replace those positions. Officer Hannah Masters is a new officer. She started yesterday her field training. She'll have field training for a minimum of 6 weeks, possibly longer, depending on how she develops. Due to the fact that Scott Kretz was our FTO, I will be field training her myself because I'm the only other certified FTO in the department. Obviously, as a young department, some of the younger staff will start developing them to be able to do the FTO training and things like that. We hired Marge McGraw to be our administrative assistant. Comes with a lot of experience. She was I think she worked for probation and parole for 19 years. So she understands the element of the criminal element, but she also worked for dispatch for Monona PD, and she returned back to the state, and things had completely changed while she had her stint at Monona. So then she took on a job with Iowa County as a dispatcher, so she understands handling high volume calls. And so this will be nothing for her because she'll understand how to, triage things. She did a lot of administrative work in Monona, so that will come in handy with us as well. She's doing very well. She's picking up very fast. She did spend a couple of weeks with Lisa, so she got a little bit of foundation of the job, but there's some things that she's already kind of changing to better be more efficient and bring things up. So that's very helpful because there's a lot of things that for her will be different now that she's in that position. Employees, if you go down our list, it basically gives you all the things that we're involved in. I don't know if I could fit any more things. My it is full. But we all have some type of responsibility. So with Scott leaving, there's going to be some movement as far as the committees and groups that he's involved with to be added. Matt Hudson has really stepped up as a leader in our department. He takes on a lot of things. His initiative level is at A+. He's constantly trying to better the department, and he's definitely a future leader in the making. So I have nothing but good faith with him. He helps out a lot and things that I don't even have to ask him to do. He just takes care of it. So his maturity level is A+. So he will be taking over a lot of Scott's responsibilities, and we'll be developing him into the next level. Our budget is, some of you have seen it, but that basically tells you what we had for a budget this year, where we worked within our budget. We did go over on some items within the budget. Fuel was crazy, so it really hurt us. So we offset things with other items. We just, as the department head, when I see that we're going too much on one side, I try to then take off on another place so we can even out the budget. The other item that we really struggled with was maintenance. Our squad 16, we are in desperate need of a new squad. There's like 3 things now that we have to change. But last year we had to add a new transmission to it and some other parts to the wheels. And so it took up probably 90% of my maintenance budget. So I still needed the oil change. There's still regular wear and tear of squads. And so that was really, really hard. Adding a new officer too also took a big chunk, is that just adding new equipment and things like that, they're not budgeted for when you add new staff. So that was a couple $1,000s too. So we came in okay, but it was, usually we give back a lot of money. We're frugal in our spending, but this time we had to use is pretty much all of it. Statistics wise, what I did this year is I cleaned it up. So last year I kind of gave you what we did the year before, and this time, and this is the way I'm going to leave it now. I think it just works better. I'm just going to give you 4 years of what it looked like this year. So 2019 was the year that Tom's last year. So it kind of works nicely for the transition. So from here on out, it'll just be my years, but 2019 was his year. And you can, if you go down the thing, some things obviously were a lot higher than others from his time. One of the most notable, I think we get a lot of traffic complaints. And if you go down to traffic complaints, in 2019, we had 148 traffic complaints. If you look one step up, you'll see how many citations we wrote, which was 14 traffic arrests. Okay, that's not that many. Traffic stops, we only had 94 traffic stops. Whereas if you look down the line, 2022, we had 446 traffic stops. So our staff really just stepped up trying to combat that problem. And because of it, our traffic complaints are way down.
Yeah, what's very interesting is, the stops are 4 times as much and the complaints are half as much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very.
I mean, that's the way it works. The
Yeah,
more you
absolutely.
stop, because when you have someone stop, the light is obviously warning that person, but it's warning everybody who's
Yeah.
going past that stop.
Absolutely.
Especially if you work the school zones, that warns you're warning now 100 cars rather than just the one. The other big thing that you'll see here is, and this is one of many things that has changed. So open doors are kind of in the middle. In 2019, they had 2 open doors. Okay, so that means that they weren't checking doors. Absolutely not. Because 2 open doors, that's nothing. Whereas my first year here, they stepped it up a little bit more, but I was still trying to learn, how things were working. But the year 2021, they had 77, and in 2022, they had 60. So they're checking doors, they're finding open doors at least every other night or every 3 nights. They're finding an open door. So that means they're checking businesses. So that's a big deal. That really does help. A big change that I saw this year also was the EMS calls. You guys had a lot of EMS calls. So we assist on all of those. So we had a lot of EMS calls. Fire calls were way up too. Okay, so bottom line is in 2019, the department handled 1,676 calls. It's increased every year. And last year we had 2,890 calls, which is a difference of 1,214 calls, which means that we had a 72% increase in calls from the time Chief Jansen was here to my time. So it's very, very busy. We have high volume type calls, but we also have a lot more information calls, which means that a lot more people are calling us, trusting us with information, providing us information. So that just kind of increases our call volume. Then I identified some significant events. Probably the biggest one that will draw your attention is a search warrant that I did on a complaint of 2 kilos of coke in a vehicle. So that's still ongoing. That's still an ongoing investigation. Projects and programs. We were able to put together a restorative justice court initiative. So any child that is found guilty of which would be a crime, we first put them through a restorative program as long as they agree to it. Restorative programs through YWCA, we entered into an agreement. So that way it could stay off their record and give them an opportunity to restore whatever they did, whether it's a drug violation or whether it's a theft or something like that. We still issue the violation, but then we send them to restorative court. And as long as they complete this program, then that kind of gets expunged. We never see it. That never makes it to court. They have to go. Some parents will actually pick the ticket over the restorative court because there's so much process to go through. So we've referred a couple kids, and so far it's worked fine. Traffic Safety Commission, Lieutenant Reddy is assigned to that commission. It looks at data with regards to crashes, OWIs, things that are coming through town, through the county, to develop programming and how to deal with that. Then we started our officer wellness program. It's in a very infancy stage. I expect that this next year we'll really have a really good program in place. participated in all these things. One of the new things is we participated in Oktoberfest, which our department did, like take your brat to work day. And so we cooked brats, and then the community just kind of drove by and we gave them brats on that day. It's kind of a neat deal. And people were, they were gone in like an hour and a half. So it was well received. Let's see. We did several traffic initiatives throughout the year. Our drug take back we were able to recover 80 pounds of prescription drugs that we turned over to the feds. Staff worked about 250 hours of overtime. I worked an extra 260 hours. I do think that will change because of some scheduling that I was able to adjust. So hopefully that won't be the case next year. Okay, then those are the averages and things I've already pointed out. Future initiatives, I'm hoping that now that we have an operation plan, we will plan a table exercise. They're a little tedious to plan, but I do think that we can get one off, if not this year, definitely early part of next year. I'm finishing up updating the policy manual. Policy manual is about this thick, so you have to go through it. It's a painless process. It's a painful process. So I am going through all that. Field training manual should be updated anytime we have a new hire, because there's things that change and whatnot. So that, as I'm going through field training with our new recruit, I'm going to be updating that. The website and Facebook page will probably stay pretty much the same. There'll be some changes, but the website will definitely be different next year because we went to a different vendor, and it's going to be connected to the village, so it'll be a lot more user friendly. Another thing that we started that we committed to last year is to have a new scholarship. So at the high school, they give out scholarships from businesses. We jumped in on that. It's a very good PR tool, and it's to encourage students to maybe take on law enforcement as a career or some type of first responder. So we'll probably do some fundraising. This year's already covered. Somebody came in and gave us money to cover that program. Hoping we can kind of develop that and help. It's not a lot of money. It's a $500 scholarship, but it really does recognize our department commitment to education and advancement. We are going to also start an award recognition program for students and the community. So we deal with a lot of people. So there's ways to showcase those people that help us or that are involved heavy in the community. So maybe a recognition or award from the police department, it'll go a long way. Also with some students, teachers always identify leaders within the schools. So we're going to get involved in that. And then the thing that I really want to accomplish before my retirement here is department accreditation, which anybody who knows that it's a very tedious process. First thing is you got to get your policies in place, and then you have to make sure that the officers are doing the policies and that they're documenting and that they can document this. So this group does a full assessment of your police department. Not everybody passes, not everybody has it. Middleton, they're going through it now. They're in their final stage, and it's years of work. So my hopes is that by the time I'm retired, this department will be accredited by the state and as a top agency in the state. It's a big undertaking, but I think we can accomplish it. It's just, so first step is policies and making sure that they're up to date, and then I have to document when they're followed and how they're followed, and there's a whole big process. So that's my report, and I'm sticking to it.
Excellent report. Any comments or questions on the chief's annual report? That was very well done. Would you like a motion in a second to accept the?
Yeah,
report?
so what I'll do from here is if it's okay as is, with no other further explanation, then I will move it on to village board. I won't do such an in-depth one there because they usually have a much more filled agenda. So I'll just give it to them and then say, anybody have any questions? I might highlight a couple,
I'll
2-3
make the
topics.
motion to accept and approve the report as presented.
I'll second.
A second and a motion. Any further discussion on the annual report? I think it's a big improvement over what has been done in the past. So I have a motion and a second to approve the report as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both say the same. Passes unanimously.
Okay, the last item. I'm gonna bring it up and just.
Discussion of possible action regarding municipal court fine schedule.
Okay, the reason this is on your agenda and it's the last page. Part of the village board. And specifically village president, there was some direction on how to become more efficient. How to, save money, how the village can make money, okay? One of the things that has been brought up is that our fines they're 2 decades old, okay? Now, I'm not in support of this, the way it's being presented, okay? So what I mean by that is I don't want my community to think that my officers are gonna start writing tickets at a higher volume or at higher price to save budget issues. And I sent out a memo to the board, I'm assuming you got that memo, and saying, if we're gonna do this, it has to be done carefully, because ultimately, we're the ones that have to deal with the public. And I don't want them thinking, well, all of a sudden, the next thing I'm gonna hear is, yep, you guys are writing tickets because you're trying to save the, money or add money, and that it's not a good thing. Now, at the same token, I do believe that for instance, whatever, if you look at the deposits, if we write a ticket, we're getting, like 20 some dollars or $30 out of the ticket. So it's not a lot of money. So it's not like we're making any headway, and there's all kinds of court costs and all kinds of things that just aren't recouped. It's not as easy as you guys just making a recommendation. I have learned that the judge has to approve any kind of addition to any of these fines. He has to be okay with it. Now, I have had a conversation with the judge, and he said as long as it's not outrageous, he would approve it, because it hasn't been looked at for a couple of decades. So with you guys not getting this stuff, I really think this one is something that we should probably table. You look at it, ask some questions, and maybe then come back. And it could be simply, maybe the recommendation next month would be that all fines go up $10, something manageable, right? Because to look at every individual fine might be a little,
Yeah,
do
like-
one high or in this one.
I'd like to think about it, and maybe a percentage is the best way
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah, and
I guess I always hate making comparisons, but also what's our fee schedule compared to our neighbors?
Yeah,
Our amount of
exactly.
work.
So, you guys can definitely, I think somebody should do that research. It shouldn't, I
No,
don't think
that's
that it
the
should be
next thing
me
is I think the police department should have nothing
to do with that.
to do with
Yeah.
this. This is a village
Yeah.
decision involving the court and the powers that be. It can't be about the police department.
And I'll tell you what, I honestly, if I was told, do you want this? I would say absolutely not. I would have preferred that this would be born somewhere else than here. But this is where it came to, and so, ultimately you can say we're not doing anything about it. But I have been reminded that this, although I sit in this committee and I'm a liaison to this committee, this isn't technically my committee. It's your committee. You make the recommendations. I'm just a liaison because I'm the subject matter expert. This I don't like. This does not fall in line with police community relations. This absolutely is opposite to that. And I want it to be clear, because when someone asks me about it, I'm going to say I'm not in support of raising fines. My department has a clear understanding that I want compliance first, not tickets. Get people to comply. We write tickets when they absolutely deserve it, right? So we're not here to make money. That's not our function.
I would
So-
say we table this for further discussion.
Okay.
No, we need to take action.
Do I bring it back to the next meeting and then you guys can,
I would be fine with that.
Yeah,
I would like to think about it a little bit and
Yeah.
also do a little research.
how hard would it be to obtain some fee schedules from some of our neighbors?
no, you could call Middleton tomorrow and say, hey, I'd like your fee schedule for your municipal court. You could call Mount
I
Horeb,
mean,
do the same
if we're
thing,
Way undercharging.
then
That's
fine.
an issue.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't want to. It's not
So-
what it's about.
I think if you simply went to Mount Horeb and to Middleton, I think that's comparable to our area.
That's a good starting point.
Yeah.
Close.
So, I mean, somebody should definitely do that, so I don't know if you as chair wanna assign somebody, or somebody wants to volunteer to do it.
Volunteer to do it.
And then they did-
Accept the
Because I, and then, so
There you
just,
go.
once you
So
get,
that's all we're in the middle of, so.
once you get those, will you send them to me so I can include them in the packet?
Yes.
That would be
Okay.
perfect, and I think that gives us a little better talk, a little more information to talk about, so.
Because if it's standing out there that we're way under.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
I think that anybody could get behind it, you know, that I guess I get that, but this was an assignment to find efficiencies and, you know, create funding and those kind of things, and that's where this was born. I don't like it, so just so you guys are, so it's clear, I don't like it, so. But I think that the committee can definitely do something with it.
Can I just ask for the columns with the PA?
So, the PA is, I think that is an assessment fee. J and CL is court, or it's juvenile court costs, because some of this goes to like different entities. CC is court costs, and T is, I believe that's total cost. The F is the forfeiture, that's what we get. That F, everything on the F is what the village gets. So if we write a ticket that is, let's say it's $67.30. That's the total amount, you get $5. If you write a ticket that's $237, we get $140. I can tell you, $237, you're doing 40 miles an hour over that usually, and that, you know, lots of fines are different. So drug violations are high. I think our drug violations are like $313 if you get caught with drugs. So then your forfeiture would be 200. I mean, I'd have to look at which ones land where. I don't know, honestly, I don't know how they got to these big ones, but I've never seen anybody issue anything higher than 313.
And are these codes are pretty, like standard, like universal, like I could, okay.
Yeah, the code, yeah, if you
Yeah.
Google those codes, you'd be
Yeah.
able to find exactly what they mean, where they go. But I could find those things out too, but I honestly want to stay completely out of it, I'll be very honest. I just kind of put the document in there because I was asked to start that here.
So what I'll do is, you said Mount Horeb and Middleton.
Yeah,
If it looks something like this, great. If it doesn't, I'll create something where it looks like this and I'll have a code.
yeah, I got this from the courts, so this was given to me by Lisa Davis. I asked her where the fee schedule was. And so she tried to keep everything separate, and this was the document that she was going off of. So when we build our citations, they go off of that, but I can tell you, I don't know if there's ever been a citation issued in the 400s.
Okay.
Thank you, Janice. Next agenda item, future items of discussion. And maybe numbers have future items there, we'll discuss it now on the agenda.
If you do, please don't hesitate to send me an email. I will absolutely make sure you get these agendas. Usually you just get them. I've never had anything like this happen before, so I honestly don't know what happened.
You can add one on the yard sign stuff. I will give an update. There's a couple night out plan for the chamber. I'd like to get more businesses engaged, which include our contributors. I'd like to see more of those when the weather gets nicer in businesses, yards and place of business. So I'll take that and I can discuss it next month.
Okay.
Schedule next meeting day.
It is scheduled for that day. I wondered if we could move it to the end of the month, 1 week later. The only reason is I'm right in the nook of field training on that day.
So you're proposing February 28th?
No,
Okay.
it would, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
okay.
that's what it is.
February 28th works great for me.
Is that all right? Okay, 7 PM.
So same time? So-
Yeah, the only reason I ask is because I have my training during all day. She's here all day, and so trying to get her to stay here.
February 28th works great for me.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to
Oh,
adjourn.
yeah. A second.
I have
Sorry.
a motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. All those opposed, say